think that the main problem here has to do with what type of evidence we're demanding. I think that well, I know that generally when atheists propose the question of what evidence do you have to support your claim, or to support your belief in a god, they are specifically talking about empirical evidence, and they're only interested in empirical evidence. I I can I can say that empirical evidence is quite useful. Um, it is science is one of the handiest tools that we have, but the problem is that um, there are things outside of the bounds of science, and I think that this is something that a lot of people don't get. Um, science science is a very handy tool. I'd liken it to utensils. Um, think of science like a fork, and and you'll kind of get it. If people if you're presented with soup, or in this case, a a sense of connectedness, or a testimony, then science is not going to be incredibly useful in discerning that. Um, the best that you can say is that this is not the right tool for the job at the time, much like a fork to spoon, or a fork to soup. I mean, sorry, I'm really tired. Um, Another thing, uh, I find I find that once we realize that we're not dealing with um, empirical evidence anymore, that we do tend to run into several problems. For example, people who claim that they hear the voice of God. How do we differentiate these people from schizophrenics? How do we differentiate hearing the voice of God from psychosis? I don't think we can. Um, Especially since we're we're dealing in incredibly subjective realms. We are dealing with a person reacting to what they feel is compelling evidence for their beliefs and assumptions. So when we're not when first of all, we can't use empiricism to start claiming the existence, or non-existence, or or support for disbelief. We cannot use physical evidence in that way when we are dealing with the question of theism. But we also have this problem of, when we're dealing with theism, a lot of people tend to exhibit symptoms that we might otherwise consider um, dangerous. Uh, a big one, uh, a big one that I've noticed is Calvinists tend to have delusions of grandeur, um, and an overinflated sense of self-importance. Now, I want to make it clear that what I'm not doing here is diagnosing people. Um, I don't think that's cool, and this isn't a license to for atheists to start diagnosing theism. But we do run into very ambiguous territory when we cannot use empirical evidence. So the best that we can hope for in this debate is that both sides come to an understanding that their expectations are different, and that their focus is different, but are also aware of the the possibilities and room for error, um, or mistake when we start deviating from something that we can. I don't want to say objectively because that's objective is a very loaded word, but something that we can point to, something that we can say that is indeed what the truth is. Um, this is the physical evidence, or the empirical evidence by which we can justify this claim. I'm rambling now, but I'll just re-emphasize the point to close out that we cannot argue based on physical evidence here, and we shouldn't be arguing based on physical evidence here. But because of the fact that we cannot argue based on empiricism, we run into a lot of room for potential error, um, because that is one thing that natural philosophy, and empiricism and the scientific method does really well is remove the margin of error, um, if not completely, sufficiently. Anyway, that's that. That's my ramble. Peace. Take it easy.